Hello, Jamie from Inky&Scrappy back with my Get Creepy on Halloween make for October 2024, Caged Zombies. So to start this one, I am coming in with Ranger's white, heavy, mixed media stock that I don't know. This batch is not a good batch. I don't know if they've redid it again, but their original stuff was amazing. Anyways, so I wasn't too worried about it working well for me. I just needed to make it brown. So I started with some Distressed Stain. It was supposed to be Vintage Photo. It does not look like Vintage Photo. I ended up bringing in Vintage Photo Re-Inker, added some water, and just kind of painted that on instead. And, it worked. My Distress Stain in this one is very old, so it probably just lost some of its pigment and tone because it was sitting out. Now I keep them kind of hidden in a drawer, so hopefully it will retain colors a little bit better for the rest of mine. Anyways, so once I had that done, I brought in the Tim Holtz Planks Bigz dies. So I really just wanted kind of the longer and skinny ones. I really didn't need the shorter ones on this one, and so because it's a Bigz die, you can cut multiples all at the same time. So of course I ended up running it through twice, and then you see my throwaway sheet here. I will save that because I might need to pull from it later on. I love the fact that you can kind of cut them apart and you still kind of have a plank look to the scrap, and so it works well. Of course, because they're wood planks, they needed that wood grain look, so I brought in the wood grain 3D embossing folder from Tim Holtz and added some Gathered Twig Distress Oxide ink onto the one side. So this helps those recessed areas a little bit, makes them a little bit darker, adds some depth and texture to it. Well, obviously the 3D folder add some texture to it. So I was gifted this wonderful Zombies stamp set, so thank you very much, Susan. And of course, I have to play with it, right? So this was definitely the first thing that came to mind when I got it. I had seen a Facebook post on Halloween decorations for outside, and it was like a palette with skulls, like skeletons trying to get out, and so this was the, direct result of Susan sending me the zombie set and that inspiration on Facebook. Yep. So, of course, I stamped out all 3 heads. I wasn't sure if I was going to use them all, but I wanted to have some options. I also did 3 hands because I wanted the hands coming up and through. I didn't know if I was going to love all of them, that they were all the same, style of hand, but I think it works out in my finished card. Zombie coloring. Okay, what color are zombies for real? I really don't know. I just kind of go with what I think they would be, and of course I did gray matter for the brain because, gray matter. I thought about bringing in some pinks for it, but I decided I liked the gray instead. So I did some green grays with the Ohuhu Honolulu Bee set. So the Honolulu Bee has the brush and the fine. Some of these colors are also in their Oahu line, so the greens I don't think are. These are like sagey greens, and I'm pretty sure they're only in that Honolulu series. Don't quote me on that one though. I'd have to look. So if you're interested and you want to know, let me know and I can comment below and I can look to see if there's some comparable ones in the Oahu line. So I started with my darker green, and then I went in with my lighter green, and then I was like, it really didn't look zombie-ish enough, so I brought in I think it was Barely Beige or Fruit Pink or something, like a skin tone color, and colored over the whole entire thing with the skin tone color, and I liked the look of that. I did it on my hand down below there. I did the skin tone first and then went over it with the green, and I didn't feel it gave it as much of the zombie look as it did going the other way. So there's that. So I kind of followed the stamp on this one, going along those, the marks that look like where your shadows and shades would be. I kept the coloring fairly simple on these. I didn't you know, overthink it too much, just kind of filling in where needed. I did add more pinkish on to my hands on this one than I did the other ones, and I liked it. And of course, I had to bring in some red because, you know, blood vein eyes, and of course, you know, the little head detached, it needed some red. And then I brought in the lightest gray color there to add a little bit more depth and dimension to the eyes. And then I just added in some colors for my eyeballs. Nothing too spectacular here, just kind of keeping it simple. I did bring in a thin white, I think this is an 05 gel pen, just to add a little bit more, I don't know, detail to the eyeballs, to the irises, and then of course coloring in the stumps. So I gathered all of my things. I did die cut, or I did run through a piece of black cardstock here with whatever was left on my wood grain. I needed a background piece. It was not 5x7, but I am going to put it on a 5x7 card. It didn't end up being a true 5x7 card. And then of course I needed a piece of acetate, so I cut that down as well to that 5x7 size to kind of use as my framework for putting on, I guess, my palette. So I'm going to glue on my black piece on to my card base here. Now, I'm going to get real. If I were going to keep this one, it wouldn't have gone on a card base. It would have gone on a wood block. I'm hoping the lovely lady that gets this one decides to use it as a decor piece and either finds a 5x7 frame that'll fit in, or a wood block. It doesn't even have to be a 5x7 wood block, just a wood block that'll hold it up so it can stand. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Because yes, this one is super thick and it was definitely intended as a decor piece. I'm going to have a hard time nailing this one. I'm not going to lie. I will though. You know, I can make another. So to do my wood pieces here, I did come in with score style tape and added that all onto the back of all of them. I do it because I'm going to do it on top of acetate. I like to do both that double-sided score tape and liquid adhesive so it stays in place and, you know, hopefully stands the test of time, at least a couple of years. I am bringing in some scorched timber and adding that onto the grooves or the outside of all of my pieces of wood here. It just adds some depth and dimension and some definite color. Now, those bones are from the Dollar Tree. Are they hard to find? Yes. I think I looked at 3 different ones on 4 or 5 different occasions, and I found them once. So did I pick up all 4 packs that were there? Yes. I am sorry to whoever else came in after me and was looking for them because, yeah, I wanted them to. I understand. So I did bring in that archival, I want to say it was vintage photo. It could have been, I don't know, whichever one that archival one was. I figured it would stay on there because archival is supposed to be permanent, and it seemed to stick on the bones really well. So now I'm just going to start kind of building my palette or my cage for my zombies to be in, picking and choosing, you know, the widths. I wanted some room in between them. I didn't want a whole lot of room in between them, but I wanted enough room that you could see what was underneath. I haven't decided at this point what was all going on top, what was all going on the bottom. You know, I kind of had a vision, and I just worked with it from there. So before these were glued down solid, I was, you know, in the realization of, oh, I should probably, you know, lift these up, make sure that I like where they're at before I glue everything down, you know, or let it set. Maybe I should say let it set because I had already glued it down, right? So I just kind of, you know, picked and chose and kind of got it at least semi where I wanted it before it was totally dry. And then I did one skinnier layer, or part, I think it was a part of a skinny layer in here, because I felt like I was going to lose too much, shall I say, you know, too much background space. I wanted to be able to see the stuff that was going to be underneath it. I did pop up my first zombie head here and put him on top of the plastic. And then, of course, trying to figure out where I wanted the hands coming up and through. And so adding in some foam adhesive on those to kind of pop them up a little bit and tucking them behind. And then I did end up coming in with a bigger piece here. I think in hindsight, I probably would have liked to have come in with a smaller piece there. You know, it looks fine overall, but if I could do it again, I would probably do a smaller, thinner piece there, just because then you could see a little bit more on the other. Now, for this hand, I wanted it underneath, but I wanted it to look like it was reaching up and over and around. And this is kind of how, even though the three hands are all exactly the same, they kind of ended up looking different just because of how they were placed on the card, and I loved how they came together. So, oh, costume change, yeah. See, I said I didn't get it all done in one sitting. You know, took a while. So, I'm coming in with my second, well, I guess it's my third hand, really, and then figuring out where I wanted that other one. So this one is going to be underneath that acetate, but he's kind of looking through, and you can kind of see his gory stuff down below. I guess we'll call him his I don't know, his whiskers. They're not whiskers though. You know what I mean. Yeah. So I kind of used the hand that was on my stamp to see where the little fingers are kind of supposed to be placed. I don't know if I got them in the right spot or not. It really didn't matter. But I wanted to add a little bit of chain here to kind of show that it was, you know, chain shut. This chain kicked my butt. I wanted to make it a shaker card, so I knew I couldn't do big shaker or little shaker pieces or glitter in here because obviously I put a hole in my acetate, right? Which was fine. So I did string it through. It did not want to stay. It was difficult at best. I don't know if I would do it any different, but it just took some time. So I sped this up greatly for you and cut out a bunch of it. So just kind of wiggling it through. I think I ended up doing a double hole punch with my little teeny tiny hole punch. I probably could have gone with a bigger one because I ended up going with some really big shaker pieces that wouldn't have really mattered. I think the bigger part was getting that hole punch far enough up. So I do have a long reach one, and that worked fairly well for me. I did close it with a jump ring and connected it. I probably wouldn't have had to do this. I probably could have taped it. I think I might have ended up taping it in the long run just to make sure that it was going to stay. I don't remember. Don't quote me on any of it. So I knew I wanted it to be in. I wanted it to kind of be loose so it would hang a little bit. Here's where I say, I cut a little bit off. I ended up cutting some more off later on, ultimately just because I didn't want any white sticking out behind. So I'm using this black foam tape that I picked up on Amazon. It's like thick foam tape, so it's like 3+ millimeters thick, and then I tripled it because I needed to have enough room and space for those bones to move around in there. I tried to do 2, but it wasn't quite tall enough, so it ends up being like almost a centimeter thick ultimately. Yeah, it was thick. That's why I said it's meant to be a decor piece for sure. So I did end up kind of trying to, I will tell you this, it was a hot mess, and I bought the foam tape, the white stuff, from the same company. The black stuff is like in a league of its own. It's different. That it's like stupid sticky, and it like sticks even to that red plasticky backing. It's horrible to work with, but I like the fact that it's super thick and it's black, so it kind of hides some. Now I am bringing in some metal brads that look like nail heads, or I think this one has nail heads, hex like bolt heads, and screws. And so I just ended up poking a hole, adding some glue to help keep them in place because they are, you know, about 10 millimeters thick, just like my foam. Yeah. So they don't fold on the back side. They are just stuck in there. Of course, for this one, I'm bringing in a piece of scrap foam just so I can press into it and get some more. I just, at this point, this is the fun point. Like, this is just me playing and decorating and making it extra because all of the heavy lifting is done, so to speak. Like, all the hard work is done. And so just putting in some brads there, trying to embellish it and decorate it so it kind of has an, I don't know, a pleasing aesthetic. Not that it's really, I don't know. It is what it is, right? So here I'm just trying to make sure that it's going to fit where I want it to fit. And then I need to, you know, add in all the things. I was going to let that one head just kind of float around, but I felt he might get lost. So I did end up gluing him down. And then adding in some, I took off my backing here before I had all my, you know, piecings. Yeah. You see what I mean when I said it's a pain in the rump roast? Yeah. Oh, it's like, and then it would like stick to itself and the adhesive part would not, it was bad. I do use, you know, liquid adhesive on these as well because, yeah. But so I need to add some shaker bits in here. So I had a spider laying on my desk. He ended up in there. I was trying to think what else would be good shaker. I wanted it to kind of rattle and shake a little bit, kind of like, you know, I don't know, bones and zombies might rattle. So I did bring in some bigger green beads here because I wanted to kind of keep with the colors of my zombies. And then I have these acrylic beads that I think were like for flower arrangements or those types of things. But they're small enough, but big enough that they won't fit through the holes. So I brought in some black ones and then some red ones. And then, of course, I brought in some Tim Holtz Ideology, the eyeballs, the creepy eyes. So I added one of those. And then I have, you know, some other trinkets in my stash from over the years. And I decided on the little skull coin, you know, the treasure trove of things. So there's definitely a, you know, an assortment in my shaker. So I'm adding some glue on to my front piece here, and then I will place that on top. Try to secure it down, and you can see some white yet. So of course I'm just going to come in with my scissors. I wasn't too picky. Like I said, this one, you know, is meant to be a decor piece. So the fact that my card does not really look the greatest overall, it, you know, it was what it was. So I'm going to add in some, I was going to do the wood grain on the inside to cover it up, and then I was like, this is so thick, I can probably add wood all the way around to kind of hide that black foam tape. Granted, it's black and not white, so it kind of, you know, it looks dark anyways, but so I cut those planks down to in half and then added those. I was fine with them being, you know, with the black being back there because it just looks like dirt or, you know, darkness. And so that was fine. And so I added those all the way around. I did end up bringing in some of those scrap pieces that, you know, I saved and ran through with a 3D folder again. And of course it worked well. So this one I needed another little piece up there, so I just kind of tucked that in there and then continued on with the rest of, you know, filling in my frame here. Once I finished that frame, I did end up going back and covering up the part that on the inside. I was like, well, I could just cover it with white. And I ended up just doing some scrap pieces on top here just to kind of hide it, I guess. I don't know if I would have needed to, but, you know, I like to make it look semi-finished. Yeah, I know. I'm weird. Anyways, so once that was all done, you know, I had to shake it. I decided I was just going to kind of add in some of the white was hanging out, and so I ended up, the one I had tried to do the full piece and it was just too much. So it was not going to stick if I was going to try to add some more distressing to it. So I just ended up re-gluing it again, holding it in place, kind of adding some ink along the backside just to make sure that there wasn't any like stark white to it. And then of course I had to play with it. And of course my eyeball flipped the wrong way around, so I had to shake it until I could get it to flip again. So I did get it to flip the right way. It just took some time. Frustrating? Yes. But I guess that's what happens when you put too much thickness in there. I don't know. I don't know how I could have adjusted for that. Anyways, hopefully it arrives to her eyeball up. Yeah. And here's where I say I wasn't really worried about my card base. Yeah. It's all wonky, and that's fine because it was really more about the actual zombies on the front. So I did bring in some glossy accents for the eyeballs that are sitting on the front of the acetate. And then I probably should have done this part before I did the glossy accents, but you know, hindsight, right? So I had planned on bringing in the moss that I think it's called Reindeer Moss. I don't know. I picked it up. It was just mossy. It looked cool. And I was like, ooh, that would be fun to add some moss onto the cage look here, so it looks like they've been down there for a while. So then I'm just going to add that onto the glue that I had laid down, kind of press it in there a little bit. The other thing I had thought about doing was Flower Soft, if anybody knows what that is. It's like from eons ago. But I think you can get like I think it's like for models. They have like grass stuff or bushes or whatever. It'd be like the fluffy stuff. That would have worked well too, but my Flower Soft is either ivory or pinkish green, like florally colors. I didn't want that. So I love how this one ended up turning out all of the fun little things that are kind of hidden underneath, and of course that moss, and yeah, it had all those things. Anyways, this one also works for my craft roulette project this week because collage of zombies. Italian colors would be, you know, green salad, breadsticks, maybe a little bit of red sauce, definitely some leafy greens in there, and long lines, long diagonal lines, and some short lines up and down. So there we go. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Have an amazing Halloween if you celebrate. You know, stay safe. Bye.